Okay, good morning once again. We'll go ahead and get started. Looks like everybody's online. Um, so once again, I want to welcome you all to the webinar for Windchill data management and dealing with medical devices. So just a brief overview of what we're going to cover is once again just a quick summary of who I am. Then we'll talk about boundary systems give an overview of Windchill as far as how it relates to medical devices, and more along the lines of some of the regulations that are there for medical devices and where Windchill will fit into that. Then do a demonstration showing some of the functionality and not everything that's there for the medical devices, or I should say for Windchill dealing with some of the medical devices. And then have a quick Q&A afterwards. So once again, I am Michael Wimberly. I am a senior technical specialist at Boundary Systems. I've been working with PTC products for over 20 years now, going from Pro-E into, of course, the Creo, from Pro PDM into Intralink, into Windchill, all that fun stuff, going through all of that as well. I am certified instructor for Creo and Windchill classes, also a certified Windchill implementer. And although Boundary Systems is located in Cleveland, Ohio, I'm actually located in Cincinnati, Ohio. A few things about Boundary Systems. Once again, Boundary Systems headquarters is in Cleveland, Ohio. We are, as far as technology leadership, we consider ourselves one of the best. We have partners with Stratus, which is 3D printers, also PTC products, Autodesk, eTraj, and then some other technical companies that we also work with. We've also been number 16 fastest growing private companies in the greater Cleveland area. And then just some of our basic capabilities. We have, of course, product lifecycle management. We have data management. We have CAD design and consulting. Once again, simulation, 3D printers, and product development. And what you see on the right side of the overhead is just some of the companies that we work with. This, is, of course, isn't all-encompassing to the companies, but just a few of the companies that we actually work with. And then some of the awards, industry awards, we can see that over the past 4 years, we've been in the Inc. 5000 in different positions. We've also been in the Weatherhead 100 over the last 3 years. And then some of our major accreditations, once again, Stratus support service provider, 3D printers, Windchill certified implementer, PTC preferred service provider, and of course a PTC certified training provider. So we actually do training in our facility in Cleveland, and we can also come to your facility and do training as well. All right, so jumping into the presentation, I would love to sit here and tell you all that we have a software that is fully FDA 21 CFR Part 11 compliant, but that's not going to happen. And that's not just because the software is laxing. You can actually see here from the website itself, it is not possible for any vendor to offer a turnkey Part 11 compliant system. Any vendor who makes such a claim is incorrect. Part 11 requires both procedural controls such as notifications, training, SOPs, administration, and administrative tools, controls to be put in place by the user in addition to technical controls that the vendor can offer. At best, the vendor can offer an application containing the required technical elements of a compliant system. So no, I'm not going to sit here and say that Windchill is the be-all, the end-all. It gives you everything that you need to be fully Part 11 compliant. Once again, if you look at the next portion of that, it said no vendor can claim that his or her software products are certified Part 11 compliant. A vendor instead can say that he has all the technical controls for 21 CFR Part 11 compliance built into its product. Remember, it is the responsibility of the user to implement the procedural and administrative tools along with using the products with the correct technical controls for overall Part 11 compliance. So as you can see, I'm not going to sit here and say that we have all the answers, but I'm going to tell you that we do have parts of the answer in order for your to work inside of your compliances. Now, this presentation will be a little bit different than some of the other ones if you've been on any of mine in the past. It's not hiding those. It's the wrong one. Sorry. I just realized that it was showing the incorrect overheads. I apologize for that. Let's go back. There we are. Okay. Sorry. So I apologize for the delay or for the confusion. So jumping right back into it, you have your quality system regulations. So we know that once again that with your certifications, there's a lot of things that go into it. So this is once part 820 quality system regulation. And as I was saying before, this was a little bit different than any of my other ones, only because there's a lot of regulations dealing with this. So I just want to cover some of these items. I'm not necessarily going to read everything on every slide, but I will cover or at least talk about some of that so that we can see how it actually works inside of the certifications. So once again, the quality system regulations or QSR applies to current good manufacturing practices, which governs the design, manufacturing, packaging, labeling, storage, installation, and servicing of all finished devices intended for human use. So once again, that's just simply going in and understanding what the device is, making sure all your practices, a lot of your SOPs, those things are in place and they're where people can find them, and you can make sure you can prove that the SOP is saying this, and this is exactly what we're doing. The next, going down to the next bullet portion or the bold portion, it says these documents are design history files, device master record, device history record, and quality system record. So as you can see, a lot of that is historical stuff. So you're making sure that you maintain a history of everything that you have, a record of when things are done. Once again, that's where Windchill will come in as well, because not only does it keep the current version, it also keeps all the historical versions, and each one of those are time-stamped, they're revision controlled, all those things that are necessary to make sure that everything is properly compliant. So the approvers, anytime you have something that needs to go through approval, you have the 21 CFR 820.40 Part B. Once again, provides that changes to documents shall be reviewed and approved by individuals in the same function or organization that approve the original review and approval. So once again, making sure that all your I's are dotted and all your T's are crossed, and making sure that the individual that actually initiated is also the individual that's going in and making sure that it's approved or that the changes are approved. So once again, making sure that the loops are closed. The checklist, as both FDA and industry have discovered over the past few years, a one-size-fits-all interpretation of regulations such as 21 CFR Part 11 is not feasible. In August of 2003, Part 11 guidance, FDA decided to put the onus on regulatory interpretation of the organization that it regulates. What this does, this will allow and obligate companies to use proven science-based approach with documentation justification through risk management plans. So once again, here we have additional documentation that will need to be looked at and saved and regulated, controlled. So the thing that I like when you look here, sorry, did I miss that slide? I think I did. I apologize. There was a blurb that I really liked. I think I got rid of it. But once again, making sure all your documents are controlled properly and the right people approve it. One of the things that does that is the use of electrical signatures. So in the past, of course, everything was actual paper where people would physically write down their signature. But now that we've gotten into more of the technology age, e-signatures are what's being used. And of course, inside of Windchill, we have the ability uh, to duplicate an e-signature or certified method of using e-signature. So once again, the Part 11.5 states that signed e-records shall contain information associated with the signing that indicates the printed name of the signer, the date, time, and the meaning, and that these items shall be included in any human readable form of record. So once again, the e-signature is there, it's being used, and once again, it does have a time stamp, a date stamp, to make sure that we know that when this person went in and actually signed off on whatever it is. And we'll go into that a little bit more as well when we actually go into the system and I go into some of the promotions and the change management. So e-signature certifications, one can also find wording for the certification in the preamble of the final rule. The response to comment number 120 is the final rule instructs persons to send certifications to FDA's Office of Regional Operations, so on and so on and so on and so on. So here we're once again looking at getting everything certified through the system. And we're just using our e-signature certification to do that. Down at the bottom, it says, although it's not specified in Part 11, most software programs that execute e-signatures and that have notification capabilities report attempts via an email notice to the database administrator. So once again, the e-signature is used sometimes through email notification as well. Now, with the overall system definition, there is a closed definition for your system. The bold area, like I said, I'm not going to read everything there, but the bold area talks about what actually institutes a closed system. A system is closed if persons responsible for the content of the records control access. And that's one of the key factors inside of Windchill is through our different life cycle states, through our different permissions that we set up on those different states, we can go in and control who can go in and actually update the information for the files, who can actually go through and check them out, who can modify them, who can do anything directly associated with those particular files. All right, and then once again, timestamps. As I said before, timestamps are all over Windchill. So anytime you promote something, there's a timestamp. Anytime something is signed off, there's a timestamp. So those things are continuously actually set up inside the system. Now, the system validation itself. Actually, this is the slide I was looking for. The validation of the software is mandated by FDA CG, whatever the initial extension is, procedure. A company must demonstrate that the software consistently does what the company intends it to do repeatedly. In other words, it must meet company requirements for each purpose for which the software is used. One of the first items of information that could be asked for the FDA field investigator is a list of users and functionals and design requirements and how the system meets those requirements. So once again, for the validation, what you say the system must do, the system must do. Once again, with Windchill, it does go through and have that repeated motion. So that's where our workflows come in because the workflow is just repeated. Whatever you do in this workflow will continue to do in that workflow. The thing I like is that actually the first sentence in the next paragraph, it says, if it is documented, it didn't happen. So basically, if you don't have a record of it, then it didn't happen. So everything that you do must be documented. Once again, you guys know that working with medical devices, and I'm sure in a lot of other different fields that way as well. Your word isn't necessarily enough. You do need documentation that says we did this, or this is supposed to work this way. And that's where once again, the Windchill functionality comes in as well. So the question is, so what does Windchill do for you out of the box? So it gives you electronic signature. It gives you document searches that you can do. It goes in and does your bond management. It does collaboration between the different departments. So once again, by going and establishing your teams in your different departments, and having access controls, people can view them, but you may not give them modification functionality. Document change control, engineering change control, CAD software integration. Of course, by using Windchill, your core system may be the Creo system. So of course, CAD integration with that and other softwares like a SolidWorks or a CATIA or something like that, or even an Autodesk. You also have the ability to custom build executive dashboards and open APIs. Of course, being web-based, that means you can access it from anywhere. Management of SOPs, device history records, design history files. Once again, I was talking about before, where with any of that, you're going in and you're specifying the history of the file. So anytime we go through and make changes, those changes are automatically documented inside the database. Integrated project management tools, IQ, PQ, DQ, all those different areas, as well as some additional reporting tools that can be done as well. All right, so at this point, I am going to jump into demonstration. All right, so here we have a simple structure. So we now have a drive system. And what I've done is I've gone through and I've set up a couple additional folders, such as baselines, changes, and promotions. And we can go through and set those up so that when we create any of those things, those items automatically go to those folders, so we don't put a lot of unnecessary data inside of our normal directories. So what I'm looking for here is inside of here, I'm going to search for an engine assembly. So here we have the engine assembly 02, and it's actually at revision C. So if we go into that engine assembly, and we're immediately going into the structure of that engine assembly, we can see everything listed here. We can go through and expand everything. So we can see all the items that are there. We can see the states that everything is listed at as well. So we can see that some things are released. We can see that some things are in work. So currently we're at revision C, and revision C is currently at work. Well, maybe I want to go in and I want to see, a production release version of it. So I want to go in and see, instead of seeing something at, the current state, I want to see the release state. So I'm going to go ahead and, release at that, remove. So I'm looking for the latest item at the release state. Once again, apply it to all objects. And what you'll see is it now goes back to, once again, the history goes back to revision B1 at release, and it's showing everything in there at the current release state. I do apologize if there is background noise. I'm not sure if you hear it, but there's some work being done outside that may filter in through my mic. I apologize for that. But once again, you can see that it's now showing me everything that has been released, or the last configuration of released items. So I can just simply say last released. I can also go through and use baselines. Now, if you're not familiar with baselines are like a snapshot in time. It allows me to go in as I'm going in and checking files in. I can create a baseline, a snapshot of those things that are being selected or being checked in. So in here, I'm going to go ahead and remove this, and I actually have created a couple of baselines. So there we have baselines. I have one that is my initial production release, and I can have my actual engineering release at B. So I'm going to go all the way back to my A1, and once again apply it to the top level. And what that will allow me to see is structure-wise what was released. So I can see that this head assembly, it wasn't the initial iteration, it was actually a second iteration of that done, but everything at the actual revision of A. So what this does, once again, allows me to see the history of these files. Once again, history being very important to these particular files. So I can see the information here, and then we can come over here and see that when it was actually done. So there's your date stamp. So this was released on this particular time, this production release here. So I have the documentation. I also have the actual request forms that are there as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back just so we can see a couple of things into my initial drive system. And I'm going to go back to this engine assembly. And with this engine assembly, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to promote this so it's no longer in work. So I'm going to go in and create a new promotion. And this new promotion, I'm going to go ahead and give this a name. And I'm going to call this production release C. I can give it a description, and I haven't set up my rules, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure that this promotion request goes into the promotions folder. And this is all the initial information. So here I can come over and add whatever information I want. So by default, it's giving me all of the data. Anything here. So I can very simply select everything. I'm going to go over, I'm sorry, not select everything. I can come over here and selectively pick the items that I do and I don't want. So there's a revision. So I'm going to filter by revision, and anything that is currently not at C, I'm going to remove. That's odd. Oh, it's the design. Sorry. So I'm going to remove that, and I'm going to also select here and remove everything here. So those items I've just selected, I'm going to actually remove those from my listing. So now I'm going to have just simply the items that are currently at the C1 state, or sorry, C1 revision. And you see everything there is currently in work. So I'm going to go ahead and promote everything to released. And then next. Now this is now the approval. We already have it set so that the change admin one, or sorry, the promoter approver is set. Now, depending on how your life cycle goes, you may have additional states that it will actually change to. This one just has the couple of basic states, but we can also go through and set up a life cycle so when something is waiting to be approved, we can go through and actually set that state to being, let's say, under review. So it'll show it at under review, which means it's waiting for an approval process. So if I go to my home page under my tasks, there's my promotion request. Now, this one is a little different because what I've done inside of here is I set it up so that anytime a promotion approval goes through, it has to be signed off on. I'm not just going to go in and say complete task. That won't work. I actually have to go through and basically sign it. And by signing it, that means I have to come over here and now add my, or basically input my password. This is now my electronic signature saying I'm signing off on this particular promotion request. So I'm going to go in and put in my password. Once I put in my password, I'll go ahead and complete this process. Now, what does that do? Well, when we go in and we look at the actual promotion request and we look at the process, it now comes over here. Not only is it approved by this user on this particular date, but we can also see that now it shows their electronic signature. Now, what's the difference between one of these and one that doesn't have an electronic signature? Glad you asked. So one of the first ones that I've created, if I go into that one and I go to process, we can see that's not the right one. It's going to try to make me a liar. I don't like that. That shouldn't have an electronic signature. That was that one. There we go. Picked the wrong one. As you can see, this one was just done using the normal process of promotion, simply saying complete task. This one doesn't have the notification that there was an electronic signature associated with this. So once again, still has the timestamp, but it doesn't have the electronic signature directly associated with it. So once again, if I go back into my drive system and still leave it at the engine filter, all right, we can see that that item is now released, as we can see inside of there. So once again, we still have all of our filters that we can go through and use. We'll expand everything. So we did go in and release that, and we only went in and changed everything that was currently at the C1. So anything that's currently still in work and at the B levels, we didn't go in and update those. So those can be updated later. All right, so one of the other things that we can do is not only with this one, we can also go in and look and see the differences between two different structures. So this one is currently looking at the C1 design structure. I can come over here and change it to the B structure. Pardon me. Or I can come over here to my filter, and just like I could before, I can come over here to a baseline and compare it to my B released baseline. And I'll remove that, so it's just showing that baseline. So now I'm going to compare my current version of C1 to my B released baseline. So as you can see, it's going in and it's showing the different items. Now, the way I have it right now is I just have it showing, it was initially just showing what was changed. Now I've got it filtered to show everything. But if this becomes too long of a list, we can come over here and filter it and basically tell it to just show what's different between the two structures. So as I go through and expand these items out, I can see the differences in those structures. So you can see in my current one, these are at B, these are at A, and back and forth between the two. So this allows me to also see what has changed between the two structures as I was going in and creating them. So they're both released currently, but once again, this one had these items and this one had those items. All right. So as I was saying with the promotion requests, just to kind of go back a little bit, when we talk about the e-signature, because I know e-signature is a very important part of everything as well, because that's the sign-off. I've just shown it inside of the promotion request, but anytime there is an approval that is necessary, an e-signature can be required. So when you're using your change processes and you need somebody to approve it, or you need to go in and validate that somebody reviewed it, you can go through and set up those e-signatures as well. So not only do they just select the checkbox, but you can actually go in and have them, of course, log in, or I should say, enter their password, which will work as the e-signature as well. So we can go through and set those different things up. And then once again, inside of here, we can continue to use our filters to see the display as well. And not only can we use it for released items, as you go through, I know one of the things that's important as well is effectivity. So although we're making a change to something, when does it become effective? Well, we can set that up inside of this as well, where we can go through and set up effectivity, and we can do that through the change process that says, when these new changes become effective in our BOM. So although we're making a change now, they may not become effective until, the 1st of June. So we can set that as the effectivity date, and then we can also filter this structure by date. So it'll go through and actually show us the date that the BOM, it'll show us the BOM based on the date that we've actually gone through and input. And not only can we show current structures or future structures, but we can also see what the structure was going back in time. So we can go back, a year ago and see what the structure was, on this date 1 year ago. and see what the changes were between the two. So there's a lot of things that we can do. That's one of the benefits of having that history of everything, is that you'll continue to be able to access that history. And that's also where our baselines come into play as well. So if I come back in here and we do look at our baselines, these are different baselines that were created. So these baselines can be created and they can be set up where they're locked. So when you create that baseline is locked down where, it can't be added to nor taken away from, but you can also set it up where it can be locked where the items in there can't be deleted from the system. So if I have an item in my baseline, if I do a purge, then those items won't be removed because they're part of a baseline, a locked baseline, that it can't allow it to be removed. So in order for that to happen, we have to physically remove those items from our baselines. But we can lock those down so we never lose those iterations, because those may be very important milestones in development of our actual product. So one other thing that we can do is we can also go through in our system, and a lot of times when we have data, it may not be directly, everybody may not have direct access to everything, or we need to go through and share data with an outside vendor that may not have something like project link. So what we can also do is we can actually go in and create a package. So we can come over here and actually create a new package, add to a package. And this is just the initial item. And once again, I just arbitrarily picked an item. But we can go through and actually create that package. I'm going to create this as a new package. And we're going to call this, what is this? Valve intake. And if I want a description, I can give it a description. And then if I had some additional attachments that I wanted, maybe some documents or anything, I can go through and add that as well. So there we have it. So there's the valve intake. And then up here, I can go through and specify what the configuration is, or I can go through and review what the current configuration is going to be. So what items have it collected? So it collected all the CAD files directly associated with that. Great. If that's all I wanted, I can go through and say, okay. If I want a little bit more, I can come up here and change the configuration and say, okay, yep, we do want to go in and add any drawings. If we want to go in and add the entire family tables, we can do that as well. We want to add the WT parts to it as well. We can do that. If you want to go in and add any problem reports that may be there, any variances, change requests. So anything that's also related to that item, we can go through and add to that package as well. So I'll come over here and say, okay, again. And now I can go through and preview the collection again. And as you can see, it goes in and adds the WT parts. We don't have any drawings currently. That's why no drawings are showing up. But if there were, of course, they would show up there. So there's the package that we can go through and create. And then we simply go in and say, okay. Now, those aren't listed here. Those are listed underneath the actual package area in that particular product. So there's the intake valve, or the valve intake. Now, at this point, it's just a package. We can continue to edit it. So if we want to add more information to it, we could. If we want to remove information, we could. Or if we want to now go in and set up a delivery for this. So we now want to send this to somebody. So we can go through and give it a name. If they're inside the system, if they have access to Windchill, great. Then we can go through and simply email them a link. If they're outside of Windchill or outside of our firewall, maybe we want to go through and put it on a DVD or a flash drive, whatever we want to go in and do. We want to specify when we expect it to be delivered. So let's say by Friday. How is it going to be delivered? We're going to go in and use FedEx. Now, currently, we don't have a tracking number because we haven't sent it out, but we can always come back into this and actually enter in the physical tracking number for this. So the recipient, we can call this myself. If they're inside of Windchill, once again, I can search for them, search for the organization. I can give the shipping address, 1234 My Street in my town, USC. Oops, that didn't work out too well. In my town, Ohio. And email address me@mine.com. And then once again, any specific instructions that needed to be. All right, and then next portion of it, who sent it, and then once again, additional contact information as well, and then finish there. So then we have, once again, it's currently undelivered, but it's in the process of being delivered. Once it becomes delivered, then of course we can go through and edit this. So what we're looking at here is individual pieces of Windchill that can go through and help with the compliance of all the FDA regulations that we've looked at. So we do have e-signatures. We have product control that we can go through and use. We have permission control. We have our closed loop system because we can go through and make sure that the person controlling the data is the person actually controlling the access to the data as well. So we can go through and set all that up. We have the history. So you'll always be able to go through and see the history of the items, when the items were actually created, when they were promoted. You can go back through baselines. Baselines are very useful to use because that allows you to always go back to a specific iteration of files. That way you can always go back to, okay, we just sent off this package. All right, so let's go in and create a baseline for that package information. So we can always go through and use those. We can also, once again, I talked about e-signature, so we can set it up. Maybe not every process in your change process or promotion process requires a signature, but the ones that do require a signature, we can go through and make sure we lock that in. So there's many, many, many different things that we can go through and add compliance-wise and customization to the system. But as of right now, that's what we have, as you saw on the previous overhead, which I'll actually pull up the slides again. These are some things out of the box that Windchill offers. So some of those things, once again, are very important to make sure that everything works properly and is regulated properly and meets the proper certifications or requirements. All right, so at this point, are there any questions? Just waiting. Okay. All right, so if there aren't any questions, I want to once again thank you all for attending the Windchill Data Management for Medical Devices webinar. I hope this was informative for you, and if you definitely have any questions, give me a call, send me an email, whatever you need to do to contact me. If you want more information or you want to go deeper into it, once again, we can do that as well. So once again, I want to thank you all for your attendance and have a great remainder of the afternoon.